BBC World Service, it's 7 hours GMT. Welcome to Weekend with Anu Anand. Now, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the document adopted by the United Nations General Assembly back in 1948, and it expresses what are regarded as the rights to which all humans are entitled to following the horrors of the Second World War. Well, last month, a group of exiled Eritrean activists released the first recordings of the full declaration in one of the main languages spoken in Eritrea. It's called Tigrinya. Temesgen Debesay is an Eritrean journalist now based in London. He was director of the project, and in this essay for Weekend, he explains why he and his activists felt compelled to make this gesture.
አንቀጽ 3 ኩሉ ሰብ ናይ ህይወትን ሓርነትን ከምኡውን ድሕነት ሰብነት መሰል ኣለዎ. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of person, reads Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration in 1948 with the hope of addressing violations of human rights and holding countries accountable for their actions. Home to nearly 5 million people, Eritrea has an abysmal record of violations which prompted the UN Human Rights Council to set up a commission of inquiry to investigate abuses in the East African country. In a damning report released in June 2016, the commission blamed the government of Isaias Afwerki for crimes against humanity. The report said crimes of enslavement, enforced disappearances, torture, persecution, rape, and murder had been committed since 1991. That is why Eritrean activists, hoping to raise public awareness, have reproduced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Tigrinya, one of 9 languages spoken in Eritrea. The founder of the popular Eritrean website asmarino.com, Tesfaldet Maharanna, was the man behind the idea, and activists in different corners of the world lend their voice in support. Human rights are not a privilege of the few, but rights that all human beings are entitled to at birth. The idea behind putting this video together was to inform all about their fundamental rights to protection, to education, to free speech, and more, Tesfaldet said. The video features Eritrean human rights activists, artists, as well as sons and daughters of prominent politicians and senior officials whose whereabouts remain unknown after they were jailed over a decade ago for no reason other than calling for reforms and a transition to democracy. They were unanimous in citing the importance of communicating the message of the declaration with Eritreans all over the world. Speaking at the UN General Assembly in New York in October, the special rapporteur appointed by the Human Rights Council, Sheila Keith-Arut, had said the population lives in fear and the government still controls their daily life, making the enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all Eritreans a remote possibility. The video has been shared extensively on social media and is available to watch on YouTube.
That's the Eritrean journalist Temesgen Debesay. Alex Perry, I don't know, Alex, if you have any experience with Eritrea, but what do you make of this gesture? I mean, is it meaningful or is it pointless in the real world?
Well, it seems to be trying to promote the idea of sort of universalism. And, back to what we were just talking about, I think there really is a real problem with the idea that something of kind of top-down imposed morality, 8 years in Asia and 8 years in Africa taught me that governments and people around the world are pretty fed up of being lectured by Westerners that liberal democracy is the only valuable, meaningful system, as a way to sort of organize people. And I guess I've developed a kind of instinctive dislike of any kind of directive dreamt up by people in a committee room in, say, Geneva. And you see it in Africa a lot. I mean, the great example is Rwanda, where Paul Kagame has pulled a nation from genocide into the most consistently growing economy in Africa, the fastest growing, and I mean, it's averaged sort of 7% growth for the last decade or so. But the only thing that you hear about of Rwanda is from a Human Rights Watch press release. And, it's that kind of unilateralism and set of blinkers I find inaccurate as a reporter, but I know Africans find just offensive and ignorant.
Briefly, because we're going to have to take a break for the news, Diane, briefly your thoughts.
Well, I agree with Alex that it doesn't work for, a bunch of well-meaning Westerners to say this is how you should behave, little undeveloped country or large undeveloped country. But it's never a bad thing to demand human rights at the most basic level. One would wish that some of that thinking would seep into those governments and that they'd see the advantages to it.
Okay. Diane Roberts, American professor and political columnist, Alex Perry, British author and foreign correspondent. They'll be with me for the next hour and a half. Stay with us here on Weekend from the BBC World Service.